Hello, welcome to Screen Talk with yours truly, Nomfanelo Malloy. So before I get into the video's topic, I do want to remind you that I am on Buy Me a Coffee, where you could send a donation or you could join my membership, where I will share some sneak peeks of upcoming projects. Also, too, if you're interested in joining Riverside to record your own video content of sorts, you could click on the affiliate link in the description. So recently, I was on YouTube. I watched Patrick Willems, his latest video essay he calls "Who Killed Cinema? A Murder Mystery," and I was quite intrigued with what he had to say in that video. So he labeled the main suspects he calls that contributed to the death of cinema, which includes Marvel, Roger Rabbit, the death of the movie star, CEOs, TikTok, and Netflix. Now, Roger Rabbit for me was random. I didn't get quite why he included that in there. Um, the death of the movie star is questionable because there are movies out there that don't have movie stars that have did well at the box office. Such Cloverfield is a notable example for that one. TikTok, I would say question mark, uncertain. You could argue that it has changed some people's viewing habits, not just TikTok, but like YouTube or anything just outside of like traditional content of sorts. So the main ones that I want to focus on that grabbed my interest were Marvel, CEOs, and Netflix. So let's start with Marvel. I feel like this section should be more called franchise IP because certainly Marvel made, I guess, IPs popular, but I wouldn't say they're the main culprit in terms of the death of cinema. So Marvel has certainly started the trend, I would say, of franchise IP, like with their superhero movies such as Spider-Man. We'll start with Iron Man because that started like the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Because after when that movie did well, I believe it came out the late 2000s. We got many more, such as the Captain America films, the Avenger films, and so forth. And those are entertaining films. Don't get me wrong on that. I would say the quality has been hit and miss with those movies. Um, there has certainly been a decline, I would say, like with the superhero genre. I think because it's both a quality issue and a quantity issue. Because certainly when those movies became popular, the studios decided to put more and more. The main culprits for those is Warner Brothers with DC and Disney with Marvel. So I do want to share a clip where Patrick Williams talks about other studios launching their own, I would say, universes after Marvel. And I'll put a link if you guys want to check out this essay. I do recommend you guys watch this in your own time.
Next one. Every studio wanted what Marvel had, a machine that could generate multiple movies per year, all with the same familiar branding. So Star Wars, instead of just releasing the regular main installments of the saga, started producing spin-off movies. Warner Brothers started a DC Comics movie universe, and after the Harry Potter series reached the end, launched a prequel series. Universal made a Fast and Furious spin-off and infamously tried to reboot their monster characters into a shared cinematic universe, and Sony started producing interconnected movies about Spider-Man villains. More and more of the Hollywood release calendar became taken over by franchise blockbusters, with increasingly few of the normal movies, the dramas and comedies and non-sequels, getting made.
Yeah, because certainly, like with those movies have become popular, and everyone, I guess, studios try to take advantage of that trend. It is like a trend at the end of the day because before superhero stuff, like the westerns were popular. Then once those fizzled, the superhero movies took over, and then now we're seeing like more of the franchise movies. So it is like quite fascinating that studios, they all wanted to do their own versions of their shared universe, which have been, I would say, mixed at best. So I do want to share another clip here, going on with the Marvel theme, where he talks about the audiences for these movies. Once I find it right now.
Audiences didn't wake up one day and say, you know what? We don't like movies like Rain Man or Sleepless in Seattle or Crimson Tide anymore. The studios trained them to only care about one kind of movie, to only go to see familiar things based on properties they already knew. That's right. The supply made the demand.
Yeah, because certainly, like when the studios put more of those movies, the like as he was saying, like the audience were trained, I guess, to watch only those types of movies, which is unfortunate at the end because not everybody is gonna appeal to the superhero movies that the studios want to put out, which we are seeing more of that, especially with this year, because a lot of the superhero movies that came out this year have not performed great. The only ones that did well were Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, because I guess that's the last movie of that franchise, and the Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. And yeah, like I think, because I think audiences don't mind watching these movies, but when you add a lot of these movies, it does become a tiresome, like as an audience member. But I think studios have a different viewpoint on that, which I'll get into uh right now, which segues into his next point. He talks about CEOs about label as corporatism. So we, I guess, like for quite some time, or probably for a long time. So I guess CEOs, like the heads of movie studios, they always have their own like mandate or vision in terms of what they want to achieve, like with the slate of movies that comes out. So you'll see, like, there's some that'll prioritize money over art per se, while there's other studios out there are vice versa. And it's interesting that with the studios, like way back when, in the ways are kind of different to how studios are run right now. So he mentions example here in a clip that I will find. He talks about the movie Face Off, which is directed by John Woo. It's a classic movie. And that one was, I would say, produced under Paramount, under the CEO at the time, Pictureteer Sherry Lansing. And let's see what he has to say about this.
Lansing took, who ran Paramount from 1992 until 2004. In a recent interview, John Woo shared an anecdote about making Face Off and said, "Before we started filming, Sherry Lansing, the chair of Paramount Pictures, had a meeting and gathered all of the producers and important people from the studio and said, 'All I want is a John Woo movie, and nobody needs to give him any notes.' I was so shocked and surprised. I got to have so much creative freedom." I'm not saying Hollywood back then was a utopia. It was always a crass, bottom line driven business. But that is the kind of thing that it is impossible to imagine the head of a major studio saying now.
Yeah, because that is an interesting point there. Because I probably at the time when John Woo did Face Off, he has proven himself as director, like with Broken Arrow, Hard Target, and his previous work. So probably like for as a director in his position, he was able to do what he wanted. I don't know like if the same thing would apply to like a first time director, because I believe if let's say a first time director wanted to do what they wanted, they'd probably have like a bit more restrictions from the studio, I imagine, especially like for today under the major studio system. I think that's why you see I guess people would resort to more of like the indie studios today, like with the A24s, Neon, and so forth, because I guess with those studios are examples where they'll prioritize like the artistic, I would say, merit or the creative freedom of the filmmakers than profits. So here's a clip where Patrick he talks about the new CEOs. Once I find this clip,
now. Over time, there was a gradual change in the people running the studios. More and more often, they became people whose background was in business, not movies. And when the top people making decisions at a movie studio don't actually seem to care about movies, I think that's a problem. By the way, if you're wondering, David Zaslav was originally a lawyer and had
so yeah, that's quite an interesting point because he mentioned, I guess the main takeaway is that a lot of the current CEOs don't have a creative background. They have a business background, so most likely they're gonna focus more on making profits as opposed to making great films. Now I'm sure like those CEOs, they do want to make great films at the end of the day, but I think the main focus is to make profit over making a great movie, if that makes sense. So he does mention example here with Bob Iger, who's the current CEO of Disney.
till 2021. Bob Iger is often celebrated as the CEO who turned Disney around after it seemed to be slumping in the early 2000s during the final years of Michael Eisner's reign. Shortly after Iger took over, Disney was making billions of dollars from their movies alone every single year. But let's look at how he did that. He shut down Touchstone Pictures and Miramax, the in-house labels for releasing original movies usually aimed at older audiences. Movies like Signs, Pretty Woman, Good Morning Vietnam, Con Air, Shakespeare in Love, Jackie Brown, Gangs of New York, and The Life Aquatic, even National Treasure. So movies like that, Disney no longer cared about making those. Under Iger, Disney doubled down.
Yeah, I just want to pause there. Like, it's quite sad because I remember like quite a few of those movies that came out under those labels, and once those brands were shut down, I guess Iger prioritized on like the Disney brand with Pixar and so forth. So let's just continue.
On brands. Pixar started producing way more sequels. They bought Marvel and Lucasfilm and demanded one Star Wars movie every year. And worst of all, they started their ongoing project of producing live-action remakes of all their classic animated movies, which has grossed billions of dollars and might also be the most creatively bankrupt endeavor I have seen in my lifetime. That endeavor has been spearheaded by Sean Bailey, president of Disney Studios Motion Picture Production since 2010. So if we're blaming people for our current situation, Sean Bailey, I think he's got to be near the top of the list.
I mean, yeah, sure, but also Bob Iger, needs to share the blame as well too. But yeah, it's just unfortunate with the direction that Disney essentially went. I guess when Bob Iger took over, sure, it has produced a lot of like commercial hits and all that stuff, but at the same time, like in terms of I guess if you're looking at the quality is a bit up in the air with that one. It's just unfortunate that with like the live action remakes, I think overall has been a range of mixed to negative in terms of the reception. I would say probably my favorite is the Cinderella remake that was directed by Kenneth Branagh. I found that was an entertaining movie. That one. I haven't seen a lot of the live action remakes because honestly, I just did not have an interest for most of those. But it is what it is with those movies. So in terms of like the CEOs, I don't really see this changing anytime soon. I mean, it would be nice like if they were to have like a CEO that knows like I would say like the film business maybe from both aspects would be cool in terms of the business aspect and the creative aspect, but I don't really see that changing in terms of the people they get to run the studios. Now, the last point we're going to talk about is Netflix. But really, it's all about streaming because Netflix, of course, is like the leader of streaming because they're the ones that started this path into streaming. And that has made, I would say, out of the other aspects we talked about, that Netflix has made a huge impact in terms of movies and how people watch movies essentially. So let's get into the first clip here where he talks about DVDs. Once I find it with the mouse.
The death of video rental stores and how it has changed the way that people watch movies is a whole conversation on its own, but I thought it was at least worth mentioning. What's more important, though, is that in 2007, Netflix launched its streaming video service and quickly transformed cinema and the industry forever. Starting the following year, the DVD market began to nosedive, and over the next several years, it fell by more than 80%. Now, here's a thing that's not discussed very much. For the major studios, DVDs and then Blu-rays were a major source of income, and it was easy, reliable income. The movies had already been made, so now they could essentially keep printing money forever as those titles continued to generate revenue through physical media sales. In the 2000s, these amounted to up to half of a studio's profits every year. For instance, in 2006, the DVD sales for the movie Walk the Line earned Fox an additional $120 million, which is nearly what that movie made in theaters. These additional profits are what allowed studios to take risks on non-IP movies, since they knew they would always have this money coming in. But then this revenue stream abruptly dried up. The studios were desperate to keep profits up, so they leaned increasingly heavily.
Yeah, like so I talked about this I think for the first Screen Talk video where I talked about physical media. So I won't reiterate those points too much. So check out that video. But essentially like streaming kind of killed the revenue for physical media. So for instance, like with Big Trouble in Little China, for example, that movie did not do well when it came out in theaters at the time. But then once it came out on home video, that made like a ton of profit, which made the movie successful. And and I believe like there's interest to do either a sequel or a reboot, remake, or whatever. But essentially like streaming has really hurt the physical media sales for that, which is quite unfortunate to see there. And while while like streaming like does offer like convenience in terms of like a library of movies and TV and all that stuff, like at the end of the day it's just not the same feeling as physical media. So, gonna move on here where it talks about streaming. Once I find it. Oh gosh, this mouse. Stop it, mouse. Stop it, mouse. Just trying to. Ugh. Okay.
The DVD market. See, while this was happening, they also kind of broke the entire industry. In 2013, when Netflix launched their own original programming, starting with House of Cards, they revolutionized the way that television works. Now, there was no more waiting for a show to air on TV at a specific time. There was no more waiting a week for the next episode. Nope, now the entire season was just there, on your TV, our computer, our phone, instantly. This was huge. Everyone was signing up, everyone was excited about it, and Netflix, funded by a whole lot of VC money, started spending billions of dollars on original movies and shows. As their stock prices skyrocketed, suddenly every other studio had to get in on the action. And so in the following years, we got Disney.
Yeah, so because like I said, like with streaming, it offers convenience where like you get essentially access to hundreds, if not thousands, of film and TV titles. I mean, which doesn't sound too bad and all that stuff. So, so pretty much like when Netflix popularized the streaming format, other companies tried to follow suit, such as Disney with Disney Plus and Hulu, Paramount with Paramount Plus, and Universal with Peacock, and so on and so forth. So, gonna move on here to another clip. Once I find out, where essentially talks about the money aspect of the business.
Financial part. In the past year, it has started to become clear that economically, the streaming system is kind of broken. It turns out that just because stock prices are going up doesn't mean a company is actually profitable. So even though these companies are spending billions of dollars on streaming and they're getting millions of subscribers, many of them are still losing billions of dollars. Like, did you know that Paramount Plus spent $200 million on a Halo TV show? Do you know anyone that actually watched that show? Of course not. But that's how things go in the streaming era. Companies are just throwing money away. Look, the thing about the old system for TV that started in like the 50s is that it made sense and it worked. Shows aired on TV and they had commercial breaks. The more popular a show was, the more it would cost money to air commercials during it, so the more money the show would make. With movies, the more people that go see it, the more tickets it sells, and the more money it makes. You release another movie, that also makes money. But with streaming, it's a subscription model. So when you spend $200 million to make The Gray Man, it is very unlikely that you're going to get 13 million new people subscribing just to watch that movie and cover the costs.
Yeah, so I probably have said this before and I'll say it again. I do not understand the financial aspects of streaming because, as I've said, like it's convenient with streaming in terms of access to titles and all that stuff, but in terms of making profit, does not make sense to me because with The Gray Man, for example, under Netflix, it has a $200 million budget, and I'm just confused to how you're supposed to recuperate that money back if you just only rely on subscriptions. It does not make sense. Now we're seeing like with a trend. I did make a video on this when I talked about Prime Video launching the ad tiers. I do think streaming services they're gonna launch their own premium ad tiers, I guess, to make more money for the streaming services. Essentially, I'm not a fan of premium ad tiers when you already have free streaming services with ads such as Tubi and Plex, but I guess these streaming services have to do what they can to make money at the end of the day to avoid major losses. But yeah, it just it just does not quite make sense for me. So I'll move on to another clip here where he talks about habits from people when it comes to streaming. Once I find the clip.
Bring back that Scorsese quote, if people are given only one kind of thing and endlessly sold only one kind of thing, of course, they're going to want more of that one kind of thing. This is what Netflix and the streaming platforms that came after have been doing to audiences. They've been conditioning them to watch movies differently. Now, movies are not a thing you make any kind of commitment to watch. They're not something you have to leave your house for. They just come to you.
Yeah, because I think that's one of the downsides with streaming does change the way you watch stuff. Because if you're watching at a theater, you essentially have to show up on time and you watch it from beginning to end, and you cannot pause the movie if you have to go to the washroom and all this stuff. While with streaming, you're essentially in control of your viewing habits. So let's say if you're trying to watch like a movie, for example, you have to go to the bathroom, you could pause the movie. Or let's say if you want to watch like the first couple minutes of a movie or show, and let's say you have to do some other stuff at home or whatever, you could just pause that and then continue at another time. So, yeah, because in ways though, it makes people lazy, like in terms of being confined to their homes to only watch stuff, and also to watch stuff in small doses. But I'm one of like those people out there where I do like to watch stuff from beginning to end, like unless if I'm, very tired or if I have something to do. But I typically watch stuff from beginning to end, like with movies on streaming or wherever. So I would say, yeah, this is quite fascinating. Like, I guess the points he talks about here is not like a total surprise to me, but is quite, fascinating that these are essentially the main factors as to why cinema is on decline. Now, I titled like this video, "Is Cinema Dead?" I will say no, technically no, because I do think there is still interest in cinema. However, I do think it is on the decline. I would say because of the factors that just discussed in this video. So there's a lot to uncover with this video. So I will cut and do a part two, which essentially will talk about how to save cinema. So I do want to say before I wrap up, you could check the link for my socials in the description, also to the link for my Buy Me a Coffee profile, where you could send me a donation or join my membership, whichever one you prefer, or also to click on my affiliate link for Riverside. And I want to say thank you guys so much for tuning into this video for Screen Talk, and I will catch you on the next one.